everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And today we are doing something kind of unique for my channel. I'm usually more on the positive side of things, but I really wanted to talk about Pinocchio 2022 and break it down. And I have a very special guest with me today. I have Lasse Vogt here. And thank you so much for coming on. He's the host of the Fans About Films podcast. And when I reached out on Twitter about who would want to talk about this disaster of a movie, Pinocchio 2022, you jumped at the chance. So thank you so much.
No problem at all. Really glad to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Well, is this your first time on the podcast? So why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. I am a copywriter and podcaster and filmmaker and YouTuber from Germany. Good old Germany. Not that far away from Italy, where this movie supposedly takes place in. I host
Yeah.
many podcasts and also have a blog and do a lot of stuff. I will plug all of that later. But yeah, that's basically me. And I also like your show a lot. And I was really surprised that you were ready to talk some negativity because I know you are usually quite the positive spirit.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk overall about our feelings of these live action remakes. I in general haven't been that big a fan, but I watched this movie and I found myself trying to convince myself that it's not one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I found almost no redeeming value to it. And I don't know, I disliked it so much that I felt the need to like process it with somebody. So thank you for
Oh,
doing
yeah,
this
no
with me.
problem at all. Uh, that seems to be my thing now, being a guest on a different podcast talking about Disney live action remakes, because I
Oh,
did the same thing with The Lion King on the Film Brain podcast. Shout out to
oh, nice.
Matthew Buck here.
Yeah. So how I guess we should just dive in. These live action remakes, how in general have you felt about them?
uh, Not very well. The thing is that pretty much all of them are unnecessary,
Yeah.
especially now when the online animation fan community is so big and defends animation for what it is, which is a very great medium to tell
Mhm.
stories. So feeling the need to retell them in live action where you have much less possibilities to do something
Mhm.
magical, because when you do want to do something magical nowadays, you still have to use animation, just a different kind. So it's really absolutely unnecessary. Now, sometimes a remake can have qualities when you take something that's not very good originally and kind of try to improve upon it, or
Mhm.
you do a different spin with it, kind of what they did with Maleficent, which I found was, an interesting approach. It didn't fully work,
Yeah.
but it at least wasn't the same movie, just with less imagination.
Yeah. I
Ah,
hated Maleficent when it first came out. In the years since then, I have, I guess, compared to some of these other ones, it does seem like not as bad. I actually kind of liked the Maleficent sequel
oh
because
no,
at
that
least
one I
it was so weird. It was just such a strange movie that I kind of admired it on that level.
no, I that one I really kind of despised, especially when it turns into straight up fairy tale Holocaust imagery at the end.
It was so weird.
I was like, I'm done with this. I didn't really know, but yeah, you can appreciate certainly the weirdness and also the fact that
Yeah.
they basically do a wedding a few minutes after they were murdering each other in the same environment.
Yeah, it's just bonkers. And so I did appreciate it kind of on that. I didn't go fresh on it, but I did kind of appreciate it.
That's
For
fair.
I was close. I was right on the edge for me on that one. But I think that's why what you're saying about taking a flawed film and making it better. I think that's why Pete's Dragon is like unequivocally the best of these remakes because it took a film that I don't think is that good. The original Pete's Dragon is just so weird with the with those people having a bill of sale. They purchased Pete and like I don't know. It's just a weird movie. They want to turn Pete into tonic and I don't know.
I've never seen the original, but I have
Oh, you
seen
never
I know it from a trailer I had on a VHS cassette, and only in the trailer they only showed footage of the animated monster, which is kind of false advertising.
Mhm.
But the remake is a really good movie, and the special thing about it is that it is completely different. It takes the thing,
Yeah.
hey, there's this monster in the woods, and then does something
Mhm.
completely different with it, and that's what makes it work so much. And
Yeah, I
of
mean,
course, that one flopped.
the Gogans are the Hick family that own Pete. Literally, they have a bill of sale that they produce multiple times throughout the movie, and I'm just kind of like, this is so weird. You can't own a person, like what? But it does have "Candle in the Water," which is a very good song, and the animation is seamless. They do a very good job in the original. But I don't know. The whole that they're gonna take this dragon and turn it into tonic is very bizarre. And so this new one I just think is much better. It is pretty somber, but I prefer it over whatever the original
Oh yeah,
is.
it's interesting for kids and adults. Kids can watch it, even though it is more mature movie in a way, but it doesn't have anything that inappropriate in it or scary.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
parents can appreciate, the psychological and dramatic angle, and also the actors
Hmm.
who all do a very good job.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like the Black Stallion or Old Yeller or those kinds of
Yes,
uh, childhood live action films that we used to get more of.
yeah,
They
it's also
were
some
more on the somber side.
homeward bound vibe in a way sometimes, like
Hmm.
those kinds of movies. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, certainly. But yeah,
why that's a good one.
that's a good example of a remake, being justified because they just
Yeah.
take a totally different approach.
I also think the Cinderella was pretty good because I think with Cinderella, like there have been so many versions over the years. We're not as specifically tied to the Disney version, to the animated classic. At least I'm not, and so I can kind of just take it as another Cinderella movie. That we get every like
Yeah,
2 years, we get a new Cinderella movie,
I get
and
that.
yeah, whether it's like Ever After or um we just got one last year that wasn't particularly good, but it seems like we
Oh
get
God, the James Corden one.
yeah. This the Slipper in the Rose is so fun. The Glass Slipper with Leslie Crone. There's so many versions of Cinderella
Oh yeah,
that
you
I
also
can
had
kind of take a new one in stride.
the Cinderella story in Into the Woods, also with James Corden.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And there's also the whole series with that started with Hilary Duff. That there's now been like 4 or 5 of them.
Oh, okay.
Another Cinderella story,
Yeah,
Cinderella
yeah. I
story
think I'm
that are
passingly familiar
fun.
with
I
that.
mean, I feel like Cinderella is kind of a hard story to get wrong. I mean, even though I guess I just said this last one wasn't very good, but um, it's got some pretty basic elements that I think just we like underdogs,
Oh yeah.
as a society. And so it's just a likable story that makes her very easy to root for. And I just don't think we're as tied, or I'm not as tied, at least, to the 1950 classic. And I think they did a pretty good job of like paying an homage to that classic film without like copying it, or they did enough sort of their own, I think, in that Cinderella to make it like you know it could stand on its own. So I think those two are by far the best
Oh yeah.
of the live action remakes.
There's
And
a Cinderella version from the Czechoslovakia and East German production from the 70s, uh,
oh,
which is very very beloved in Germany. Like they show it every year around Christmas time, and that one takes the story and kind of expands on several aspects of it in a very nice way.
cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I can understand. I mean, of course, why Disney keeps doing these remakes, because they they make so much money, and we kind of forget that Disney, for the most part, the last 20 years, maybe longer, have been huge failures in their live action movie department, aside from these live action remakes. They, aside from the Pirates movies, they have not been able to successfully start a live action franchise, and they've tried a lot and
Right.
had just one disappointment and failure after another,
Oh yeah.
which is really interesting. I mean, you think all of the talk, all the brain power over there at Disney, that they could come up with one successful live action franchise aside from Pirates. But they've
Yeah, I
tried
mean,
with, I mean, everything from Lone Ranger to John Carter to Winkle in Time to Artemis Fowl to I mean, the list of live action bombs, Prince of Persia, um,
Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland. Yeah, that's another one. There's a lot. They have not, even recently with Jungle Cruise. I mean, that movie should have been, I thought it was okay,
Mhm.
passable. It should have been great. It had all the pieces to be great, and it wasn't great.
That's the
Uh,
problem. Like when that movie came out as it was, and the Pirates movies weren't a thing, I think that movie would have been a lot more successful and had a lot more novelty. Because watching it now,
mhm,
you're just constantly comparing it to Pirates. I mean, they even added
mhm.
the supernatural curse element to it, which just
Yeah,
emphasizes
it
the
got
similarities
so
more.
bogged down in exposition in the middle. Like it had enough fun moments, particularly in the
Mhm.
beginning and the end, for and enough chemistry for me to recommend it.
Yes.
But ooh, man, that middle section was rough, I thought.
I mean, nowadays the only live action thing which keeps Disney afloat is the Marvel stuff, which is
Yeah.
the big, the big franchise. But they're also sharing that with other people that wasn't
Mhm.
exactly theirs originally. I read somewhere that the first Avengers movie made all the money that John Carter lost.
Yeah,
Think
I
about
mean,
that.
yeah, that's crazy. Like, yeah, if you think about just the live action film department, not Star Wars, not Marvel, they have had just bomb after bomb after bomb,
Yeah.
which is kind of I think we kind of forget that. And so it makes sense why they're like, well, of course we're going to keep making these remakes because they're the only thing making money of these in our live action department.
But yeah, but I think they decrease in terms of how much money they make. At
Hmm.
least during the last few years. I mean, yeah, Lion
Well, I
King.
mean, it's hard because now they're just going straight to Disney Plus,
Yeah,
uh, uh but but yeah, I mean, that Lion King made over $1 billion, and that's the thing too, is that I feel like these live action remakes, they make a lot of money and then they are just instantly forgotten. There is
oh,
not even just forgotten by the audience that watches it, but by Disney itself. Like when when you go to get, say, a Lion King plush or a uh Sleeping Beauty plush, you're not getting the live action films. You're
yeah,
getting the animated classic. I mean, when you go out to see the characters in Disneyland, you're not meeting the live action versions. You're meeting the animated versions. I mean, they collectively, as a company, immediately forget the live action versions as well. I mean,
yeah.
immediately.
Yeah, that's right. We kind of talked about some of these aspects in the Film Brain podcast a few years back when we talked about The Lion King, and I try not to repeat
Hmm.
ourselves, but the thing why they are making these movies, all that stuff. I mean, yeah, of course, like brand expansion and easy money, blah blah blah. But the thing is, they are making those movies for people who remember those films,
Yeah.
but it's like, why, it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
'Cause-
kids don't have any relation to this old stuff, and also kids
yeah.
can watch some of these older movies and probably still
Mhm.
get something out of those.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they'll claim, "Oh, these are it's a retelling for a new generation." No, it's not. No, it's not. That's why if it was truly a retelling for a new generation, then you would see them putting out dolls and toys and other things like that, but they don't. The characters in the parks, those are almost exclusively still the animated films. And so yeah, they know that these are not for kids, because kids would want the the if they're supposed to be made for kids, then they would want the live action versions of the toys and things like that. But no, they don't. And these are for adults who have been trained by Disney to believe that there is something better about live action over animation, and the animation was for when they were kids, and now we're giving you the live action version of this animated classic. And people say, oh well, remakes, we still have the original, it doesn't hurt anything. I don't buy that, because they are hurting the overall legacy of animation, and
Mhm.
the way that people process animation, the way they think about animation. And there's now this definite feel that turning something into live action is an upgrade, is you're doing something, you're making it better. And that just makes me really sad.
Oh, it's incredibly sad and also very cynical, and it's very weird that
Hmm.
Disney is belittling animation, the
Yeah.
stuff that made them what they are.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget when they had that ad for Beauty and the Beast 2017, and write in big bold letters, better than the original. I just couldn't believe that they did
Like
that. This is
some
their
critic
Oscar
quote.
nominated film.
Yeah, yeah, right. The first animated movie
Yeah,
nominated for Best Picture. Like,
better than the original. Give me a break. Uh,
how can you even top that? It's just.
yeah,
And that especially hurts because Beauty and the Beast might be my favorite, classic
same,
Disney musical of all
same,
time. And
same.
oh yeah, and watching
Yeah.
that, I actually watched it in New York when we were there, when my father worked there in 2017, and I watched it with my mother and one of my brothers, and me and my mother, we talked like for 2 hours afterwards how much we hated it.
Yeah. I did a whole on Beauty and the Beast 2017. I did a whole rant video that was almost an hour long. I called it my nitpicky thoughts about Beauty and the Beast 2017. So yeah,
Kind
it
of like.
wasn't. It was, yeah, but are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night, or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies. But it's interesting with this Pinocchio movie, I guess, to get to the subject at hand, because I'm actually not like a huge fangirl of the original. I really respect it. I admire it. I'm in awe of it. And I've grown to appreciate it more as an adult. It was pretty scary for me as a kid. Um and so I've never been one that just like loves it, even though I really admire it. And so if there was one that I thought, okay, I might be amenable to a new telling, a new take, and we'll see with Guillermo del Toro coming later this year, if that kind of wins me over. But I thought this might have more of a chance of kind of. I certainly didn't expect it to be my least favorite of any of them going into it.
That's
I
quite an
really did.
accomplishment.
Yes. And I just hated this movie. I thought it was absolutely atrocious in every. I I struggled to come up with one thing that I liked about it, and it was only Cynthia Erivo's a great singer, so I thought her her version of When You Wish Upon a Star was beautiful because she's a good singer. So
Yes,
I
yes.
liked that.
I have to say some things about that too. But my thing with the original is that I didn't grow up with it, and I only recently
Hmm.
watched it for the very first time
Okay.
because it was on Disney Plus, and I was like, okay, now I can finally see it, and it's a perfectly fine film. You know, it certainly isn't as sadistic as the book, but
Yeah.
it's very simple, very strange in places, and quite mean too. But hey, that's the
Hmm.
point of a story. You know, everything turns
Yeah.
out happy at the end, and that's what matters most. And it's also quite ambitious when you think about the fact that it's only Disney's second feature film. Like, you can tell that they must have went over budget.
Oh,
It's full of energy, and
yeah.
the water stuff in the finale is hugely
Oh.
impressive. And so I rewatched it after I watched the remake. To kind of familiarize myself with the differences and all of that, the few there are, and it's yeah, it's a nice film, but it's
Mhm.
certainly not one of my favorites from Disney. Like, even like from their catalog back in the day, I like Snow White more. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because they could have easily just become a fairy tale story company, and there's aspects of Pinocchio that are fairy tale-ish, but I do so admire Disney that he didn't just, with the success of Snow White, then produce a bunch of Snow Whites. He copycats like he could have, and they had in production ideas for an Alice in Wonderland, for a Snow Queen, some of these other things that eventually, of course, got made years later. But Peter Pan was always kind of in the works, talking about that. That they would have their second picture be Pinocchio, and then Fantasia. I think just shows kind of what a bold filmmaker he really was. Uh, I don't know if he's necessarily given credits for just how big of a risk taker he was, how bold he was.
he certainly put the animators through the ringer in a way with
Yeah.
this one. Like, he really wanted to make sure um, be extra hard. You know, no mistakes or anything. And so when you
Mhm.
go through the movie nowadays, there are very few things you can point at and, oh, this is kind of like an animation flub or whatever, because he was really adamant that they worked extra hard on it. And I
Mhm.
think Bambi was supposed to be the second feature, and that one got
Yeah.
delayed because
Yeah.
they were
And it ended up
struggling with how
being,
to tell the story.
yeah, it ended up being the fifth,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, the fifth feature. Yeah, it's real. I mean, the animation is absolutely outstanding in the original Pinocchio. I think the Monstro sequence has yet to be topped as far
Oh
as
yeah, yeah,
pure animation.
that water
Is
stuff. Yeah,
stunning.
like I said, very very scary, very impressive. Um, did you know that this remake was apparently originally supposed to be directed by Paul King?
Oh, you know what? Now that you say that, I feel like I remember hearing that. I mean, I guess, yeah, we should talk about Robert Zemeckis a little bit because so he had so many impressive movies in the 80s and 90s. Everything from your Forrest Gumps to your Death Becomes Her to Roger Rabbit to of course Back to the Future. So many really great films, and then when was Beowulf? Like in the 2000s, he just got
2000,
super excited about motion capture.
yeah, 2006 or 7, and Polar Express was before that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, was
also
that
with
before
Tom
that? I was
Hanks.
thinking
Yeah,
Beowulf
yeah,
was the
Polar
first,
Express was
but
the first one.
okay. And I actually, I guess I'm not as hard on these motion capture films as some people are. Like
Hmm.
I don't I find value in them.
Yeah,
I don't hate them.
I admire
Um
them to a certain extent.
yeah, I like I'm a big Christmas Carol junkie. And I actually really I like his Christmas Carol because it's the version that is the closest to the book. It is very close, and they include scenes that almost no version includes, including the lighthouse scene and flying over the church on Sunday morning and things
Hmm.
like that no version has. So I appreciate it on that level, but I know it's it. it can be really. I mean, Mars Need Moms is absolutely atrocious. That's the
Yeah,
one that I can't defend.
I mean that wasn't his movie. He produced it through his company,
Yeah, the
but
Image Movers.
but yeah, that one is bad. And think about it. So much of Robert Zemeckis' career was made up of him constantly trying to advance special effects, and then he makes something like this.
Hmm.
And also, whose brilliant idea was it to say, "Hey, Zemeckis made those creepy, uncanny valley motion capture movies. He will be the perfect man for a film about a wooden puppet."
Yeah, bizarre. Like, what were they thinking? I, I mean, he just had a remake, uh, with witches that wasn't successful.
Yeah,
So
I saw that in the press screening.
yeah. I mean, let's just talk about the animation first. This movie looks absolutely terrible. I hated it. Uh the washed out lighting in every scene, you'd think they were in heaven or something like that. It's like that, like when Harry Potter goes to heaven and it's all like kind
Oh
of
yeah,
bright and
yeah,
white
yeah.
and
Certainly, all
things.
the outdoor scenes.
It looked terrible. I was shocked at how bad it looked.
It's so strange. I mean, um, wait, let me think here for a second. It's um, oh yeah, I have to ask. Uh, are people allowed to swear on this podcast?
I I usually try to avoid it, but it's
I see. Okay,
I
cool,
won't
good.
say
So
no.
I Okay, great. So I prepared for it, but I have to talk about the lighting in a certain scene, and maybe
Uh-huh.
maybe I need to let out some steam because there is this musical number um, on the donkey wagon, which they added, which is the
Uh-huh.
Luke Evans musical number. Who I didn't realize that was
What
Luke
on
Evans for the
earth?
longest time. So I was like, okay, but that musical number on the carriage, I couldn't see shit.
Yeah.
It's
No.
so incredibly dark. There's literally no light, and then he does some like complicated dancing on the donkeys and on the wagon. I was like, let me see that.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. Like, it's either like completely washed out bright or like so murky you can't see.
Yeah, it's so
Mhm.
crazy. And also, like, I mean, the lighting in the toy shop is a little bit more atmospheric in the way how it's like lit by candles and all of it. But the toy shop, I have another problem with that one, because the toy
Mhm.
shop, which we spent the first chunk of the movie in, it doesn't feel like a real place. And I know. And I don't know, maybe you had this feeling too. It feels like they walked into some sort of presentation room at Disney World where they rebuilt the cartoon set for people to
Yeah.
walk around in and look at. But this looks like they filmed it in between tourist groups walking by.
Yeah. It really does. I mean, I was at Mickey's. I went on Mickey's Philharmonic at Disneyland this last trip, and that's not a great looking film, but it's like a nice break for when you need some air conditioning, and it's like 5 minutes, so you're fine. But it looked better than this.
it's it's so strange. And also how it's always filmed from like certain angles where you almost expect like there's this non-existent fourth wall. And yeah, speaking of, because there literally is no fourth wall because Jiminy Cricket keeps breaking it constantly.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so the character designs, speaking of the animation, the character designs, I hated all the character designs. It looked like I've never played the Kingdom Hearts game. It's a
Oh.
Disney video game. But to me, every single character looked like it was from Kingdom Hearts to me.
Yes, that's very good
It re-
comparison. And I mean, with Kingdom Hearts, you have the excuse that, yeah, it's a video game and all of that, and they change looks depending on what world they go to, blah blah blah. You know, it's to the point where when they go to like the third Pirates movie, basically, in one of the newer games, it kind of looks like the Robert Zemeckis motion capture movies because they try
Mhm.
their best to make those characters look realistic within the game.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
think that frankly, I think Once Upon a Time looked the special effects are kind of hokey, and so they're sort of more fun in Once Upon a Time, but that's like a TV budget, not a
yeah,
feature film directed by Robert Zemeckis budget. Um, so you're kind of more forgiving because but I would take those kinds of more hokey special effects over anything in this any day. And the anytime the with Tom Hanks, his I thought his performance was terrible, but anytime he's interacting with the characters, it looks terrible. Like, why couldn't you have him with a wooden puppet? It's supposed to be live action. Have him with a puppet, or at least have him with a real cat. Why is he with a fake cat? It looks
because
so bad, and
because
you
everything
never.
needs to look exactly like the original, which defeats the purpose. It's just
Yeah. And it just never felt like he was with a sentient creature, when he
oh
was
no.
interacting with either Pinocchio or the cat or anything. It looked like, and his performance felt phony. It felt fake. It felt false. I mean, I can't think of a worse Tom Hanks performance.
I didn't think he was terrible. I certainly was distracted by his accent because I don't know what
Yeah.
that was. But I didn't think he was awful. Because Tom Hanks is a wonderful actor and I love him so much. But maybe I don't know like how many
I mean,
films he
this
did
is
where he had to act against nothing. Like, but think
this is
about
the
it. This is
man who
in
convinced me he had a relationship with a volleyball, and
I
I
was
didn't believe.
I was just about to say that. That's a perfect example. Yes, yes, he has so much chemistry with Wilson, and he doesn't have. And where I was thinking, did he do any movies where he had to act against nothing? Like I'm sure he did occasionally, but not quite sure. Maybe he's just not that good at it. And also,
Mhm.
when Pinocchio is still a puppet and he's not alive, is he also animated there when like Tom Hanks is puppeteering him? Because something looked off about it. I
Mhm.
think they
Well, I
didn't
mean,
even have a real stand-in.
y you'd think because he does have green screen experience as far as Polar Express, so you think that he would be a good candidate for something like this. And maybe it was just a hopeless enterprise. There's, nobody that could have made this work. But yeah, I was surprised that he wasn't better at uh, the live action work
Yeah,
with
maybe
the
it's just
CGI.
he knew this is kind of like I'm doing this as a favor for my buddy, and
Yeah,
it's
I think so.
it's certainly it's certainly not like the greatest performance, but the fact that it's Tom Hanks helps. And up
Mhm.
until the point where he starts singing briefly, I should say, but still they haven't learned anything from Polar Express because as great of an actor as Tom Hanks is, he can't sing and he doesn't have to. He
Yeah.
no, you don't have to be able to sing in order to be a great actor, but then just don't do it.
In the original, it's Jiminy who sings, not Geppetto.
I mean, Jiminy and this sings too, briefly. I have to say
I'm
that
just saying
that
there's no reason for Geppetto to sing.
no, but it's just it comes across as like a screw
Oh,
you from the
I hated
filmmakers.
Jiminy in this so
Oh,
much.
I
The voice
despised him
actually
so.
isn't that bad. The voice is pretty close to the Cliff Edwards voice, but I hated the design. I hated how they used him. He's not like a conscience. He's not. Well, we'll talk more about how they mess up all the morals of the movie, but it was terrible.
It's when I watched this, I didn't look anything up, but I immediately was thinking, who is the voice of Jiminy? I want to find him and punch him in the crotch. And when I read in the credits that it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I couldn't believe it. Like, to be
Yeah,
fair, he is unrecognizable. But first of
yeah,
all, why hire him then? And
right.
second, he's bloody obnoxious in this.
Yeah. And not a conscience. So I mean, I guess we should just dive into that because they completely mess up any kind of moral teaching. And I should have known this because Disney has been uh such a moral relativist in the last 20 years. Almost every single movie that they have produced has been uh, tonally bland. They are so afraid to say
Oh,
what is right and what is wrong.
walking on
And that's the
eggshells.
thing about the original is it's extremely, the whole point of the movie is to teach kids what is right and what is wrong. And the problem is that as a they don't want to be anybody's moral teacher. Maybe they shouldn't be, but then you shouldn't make this movie if you're not interested in that. I mean, they just every villain has to have a tragic backstory, every or be a
Oh,
surprise. Every hero has to be kind of this mixed, conflicted, whatever character, and sometimes that works. I think it works with Elsa. I think it works with some of the other characters, but but it doesn't work in this story. In this, the whole point of Pinocchio is to teach kids what is right and what is wrong. And
oh yeah.
especially we'll talk about Pleasure Island, but also with the whole point of the whole scene where his nose grows is that kids are supposed to learn you shouldn't lie. But no, they don't do that. They have him use his long nose to get the keys from Stromboli so that he can free himself from the cage. And so it actually becomes a good thing that you should lie. What?
Yeah, you should lie when it helps you. Um
I
yes.
mean, what a colossal failure.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, like some things, like when they are maybe dated in a way, how material gets certain morals across or something. Yeah, just don't do it. Like you wouldn't see like a film version of Struwwelpeter or something like that nowadays,
Mhm.
because those are um very purposefully creepy, over the top tales. Uh, to teach naughty kids a lesson, but so some things just kind of like age poorly, but you can see it in a certain context and you're like, okay, fine. But when you are doing a new movie and you are trying to update something or tell something better, and then you mess it up in this way, yeah, I haven't really thought about the nose thing, but yeah, you're absolutely
Well, and
right
then
about that.
they decide to give a backstory of why he didn't stay at school. And it's because evidently everybody is super mean to him at school and they kick him out.
And we
I'm
don't
like,
even
I didn't
see
really
that.
need that backstory about school.
There's this Jonathan Taylor Thomas version of Pinocchio.
Hmm.
I think it's directed by Steve Barron, pretty sure.
I haven't seen
The
that.
guy who did the first Ninja Turtles movie. And that one has a scene in school where his nose grows for the first time, and that it has some slapstick with the teacher, but it has some of the morals in there, and it sticks, and it gives him a good reason to leave the school and all of that. And here we don't even see anything that happens. They could have expanded
Hmm.
on that, but instead he goes to the school, and when the teacher kicks him out, like, no, the children, real children into school, and you belong to a puppet show. And I'm sorry, I'm doing this accent, but that's what he's that's what he's doing in the movie. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
give you the
So
proper
sorry.
experience, dear people out
It's
there.
like, okay, you don't want to say that line is bad, but you're fine saying that school is evidently bad. Like, what? So
It's
sorry.
just, yeah. I mean, like
And
whenever they could expand on it in a interesting way, they just don't do it.
mhm. And so we also have this introductory scene with all the clocks, with Disney Easter eggs in the clocks. And, I was thinking about it because we have seen this in a number of recent Disney films, like, say, in Zootopia, um, there's the little wink, and, when the sheriff says, let it go, and then the
Oh,
guy's
that one,
trying
and
to sell
also,
all the
yeah, with the
DVDs.
movies, with the bootleg movies. Yeah, but that one was
Yeah.
funny. Like that's
Yeah, it was
actually like,
funny. And it's more of like, even though it's an animal setting, it's more of like a contemporary setting,
yes.
Like, so it feels, it's not trying to be classic. It's not trying to be, I don't know. There's just
It's
something,
just a
because I
quick
was trying to think,
joke.
why did it not bother me when you have those kind of wink, wink kind of things in recent,
Yeah,
some of the recent films. But it bothered me in this.
I know why. Because because here it's just there to be a very in your face reference. It's kind of like,
Mhm.
this movie wasn't theatrical, but like if this was in the cinema, it would have been like 3D Dumbo coming at your face and all of that. And
Yeah.
in Zootopia, they actually, they do like funny puns with it and like visual gags with it. And it's also very brief, very, very
Yeah.
quick, and then it's gone. And it's just one
Mhm.
joke out of many jokes in that great movie. But here it's really just, I don't know, could you call it like brand wanking?
Yeah, because it's not even funny, it's just sort of there. So
Yes.
it's gross. It
Oh yeah,
feels gross.
absolutely. It's so gross. Like I think I even missed the second time they do it, um because I don't know, maybe I was just
Yeah.
yeah, but it's, and even like they, and most of that stuff they show is stuff they also have remade. And but the very last one
Mhm.
they show is Snow White, which is one in the making currently.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that was it. D23, you have Rachel Zegler saying about how they're not going to be telling a love story and that they're going to be, again, we get this language of modernizing, updating. And it's just frustrating. It's like, why can't you just sell your own unique movie? Why do you have to put down the old movie in order to puff up your new movie? And she probably didn't mean it that way, but I'm so tired of that with these movies, with these remakes. But speaking of absolutely terrible modern language, we have Pinocchio meeting Honest John and Gideon, who I guess they were one of the better creature designs, but they still looked terrible, and especially in that garish lighting. And
Yes.
what on earth were they thinking with that Chris Pine joke? I just my mouth was agape. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just I felt like in my review, people were gonna not believe me. They were gonna think I was making that up.
Yeah, but it's that one, like, because he's made out of pine wood, and then he like Chris Pine. And
Oh,
the funny thing
wow.
is, I'm not sure if that is funny or desperate. I'm still kind of on the edge. But here's a fun fact. In the German dub, the German word for pine is Kiefer. Guess which actor's name they used in the dub?
Oh, they used like what, like Kiefer Sutherland?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's
So
so
it's okay. That's
cringy.
kind of,
Oh, that's so bad.
but it's like, okay, they worked with it. That's fine. I
Ugh.
have to admit, I kind of enjoyed Keegan Michael Key as Honest John. Like he does a solid job voice wise,
It's not
and
his fault. It's just the influencer joke was terrible,
for
and then the
sure.
Chris Pine joke was terrible. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, the material is terrible, but he gets into it. He gets into it, and
Yeah.
he has a very recognizable voice. So even if I didn't know beforehand that he voiced the character, I would have recognized it immediately.
Yeah.
But and I really like the fact that they kept the line, "An actor's life is gay," because it is.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
nowadays you would think, like, because gay has many meanings, but nowadays
Right.
it's especially has the one meaning, and Disney still tap dancing around that. But I'm glad that they kept that line, especially because yeah, an actor's life is gay, especially when you work
Mhm.
within the theater scene of London.
Yeah. It's true. I can see that. So what did you think of the addition of Sophia the seagull?
uh I I hated it. It was like the first time, like that voice, like I don't blame the voice actress, like, but it's like that seemed so out of place, and it really doesn't have any use for anything.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, why, why?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I
let's
agree.
because let's do like flying 3D stuff, but this movie wasn't even theatrical, so
Yeah, I
it's uh,
agree.
it's
And
wasting
then
time.
yeah, and yeah, somehow this movie managed to be like 20 minutes longer than the original. You're just like, what?
Like, to be fair, it also has longer credits, but we completely, if you want to go like chronologically, we pretty much completely skipped over the Blue Fairy. um
Oh yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So she comes. they I thought if I guess if I was reaching for something to praise, I liked her as the blue fairy. I don't understand why they didn't have her come for to help him out of the cage and later on in the
That's
movie.
that's the thing. That's the thing that really baffles me. If you
Mhm.
actually hire Cynthia Erivo, I
Oscar
hope I
nominated
pronounced it right.
actress.
Yeah, yeah, who is such a great actress and singer. Like I loved her in Bad Times with the El Royale, for example. But
Mhm.
she's such a great actress and singer. Why not expand her role? Instead, she only has one scene. What a freaking waste!
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
she
agree.
also doesn't sing nearly enough. Like she sings a
Just the
little
one
bit of the
song.
song in her scene, and then she sings over the credits, but also only for a bit. It's why even like is that just easier than just taking a bunch of money and setting it on fire?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And I also thought that Alan Silvestri's score was super clunky in the movie. It felt like he had just come over from scoring the like a Captain America movie or the
Yes.
Avengers, and you're like, what is going on with
Yeah,
this
like
score?
in the first half, it's kind of like obnoxiously Mickey Mousey, and then in the second half, he just goes full on Avengers Endgame
Yeah,
at certain
yeah,
points, where you basically, the movie basically turns Pinocchio into a superhero. But we will talk about that later. But yeah, it's very like Silvestri autopilot, and I love him usually, but this one, it's like
yeah. It's
the
bad.
score in context, I guess it's fine, it's nicely done, but it really wasn't anything special.
Mhm. So Pinocchio meets this puppet Sabina, and the weird part I thought about this is that Sabina is not a sentient creature like Pinocchio is,
Yeah.
right? And so she has a puppeteer named Fabiana, and you're just thinking, what is Fabiana doing? Why is she invested in Pinocchio's story, and why is she doing this? It's like weird to have this. I don't know why they didn't just make in the world of this story, why they didn't just make her also a blue fairy
this
transformation puppet.
if this is one of those instances where the remakes try to add more logic and realism to something that's already magical.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, why even bother? Like I did like uh Kien Lamaya as Fabiana. Like it's a fine
Mhm.
performance. It's a nice addition, I guess, and it's not her fault, but her British accent really sticks out. Um
Well, I just
she's
didn't
big.
understand why she would be doing this. She's
uh
standing there operating the puppet, but she has no relationship to Pinocchio. Why would she be creating this whole, sort of character? And uh, I don't know. I just thought it was weird. She
it's
was a
it's
weird character.
clunky in a way. Like she kind of has like a broken leg. Like it's not literally broken, but something is wrong with her leg, and so
Mhm.
she's kind of handicapped in a way. And maybe that's supposed to be like kind of like the connection where I would also like to flee, but I physically kind of can't,
Mhm.
and I kind of have a connection with this scenery, with the puppet theater and all of that. And now I have this puppet who I can talk to now, I guess, who's in a similar situation like me. But also, when they do the show, there are at least like two other people who are also puppeteering, and we never see their faces. We only see like briefly their bodies over the stage. And I'm kind of like, who are these people? Why don't we see them ever again?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, in the original, they just kind of move on from Stromboli pretty quick, but uh, at least I don't know. You did feel it was kind of that part of the story was he'd learned his lesson about lying, and that that fame isn't valuable, um, and so I don't know. I feel like it was much better than in here. Yeah, you definitely felt like what was the point of this introducing this whole new character, and except for maybe to add a new song.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's so weird.
Mhm.
It's also
I
oh
will
yeah.
always dance is the new song.
Speaking of the new songs, They seriously rhymed Pinocchio with Holy Smokio. I have no words.
Yeah, for real. Oh my gosh. Uh,
It's
so
horrid.
it's so bad. And I mean, I understand that they want to be morally ambivalent. I get that, Disney. But again, how can you have moral ambivalency about lying is bad? I mean, lying is 99.9% of the time, lying is bad. That's a good message to teach kids. Don't lie, be honest. I, and then like we talked about, ironically, they ended up saying the opposite message where literally lying helps him to
Yeah,
escape.
yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Really. And also, we need to roll back a little bit, because I have to say, if I got $1 every time one of these remakes involved a scene where they focused on a pile of animal droppings, I would have $2, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. With this and the Lion King. Like when Pinocchio kneels down and smells a pile of horse poop,
Earth.
I wanted Matthew Buck, aka Film Brain, to appear on my screen shouting symbolism.
Oh, it was bad. It was just, I don't know. It was just bad.
Why?
But
Why
let's
is that
talk.
in the movie?
I have no idea. Did they think that was funny or clever or
I
something?
think I think it might have been a like kind of like a nod and a comment by Robert Zemeckis. Who knows?
This
Because
sucks.
it's nothing else but symbolism, really.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about Pleasure Island. So
Oh
in the
wait,
original,
it's a little bit. Oh yeah, right.
uh-huh,
That's the next thing after he gets
yeah,
freed,
after
and
the line,
he does a little bit more. Yeah, gets freed by lying, and yeah, before like
and no blue fairy. And you think, especially if you were going to if you were going to have a diverse blue fairy, you that Disney would want to use that as much as possible as kind of a look at, we have this incredible singer, incredible person, but we're
yeah,
also, look how diverse her casting is. You think they would want to use her as much as possible, not cut out scenes.
exactly. Like I said, they really underuse her. Like
Yeah,
why even bother
yeah.
hiring this wonderful talent? And uh, and it right and like yeah, the Pleasure Island stuff. They skip a little bit where Pinocchio doesn't even fully get home. Just somebody basically grabs him with a net and flings him on the wagon. So it's not
Hmm.
even, and I'm sure you want to talk about this. It's not even like his own decision to initially go onto that wagon. He's just forced to do it. So we
Yeah.
take
Well, and
away.
the entire time he's at Pleasure Island, he does not participate in any of the, because in the original, he literally gets all green, from smoking and drinking and playing pool and stuff like that. He's not doing any of that here. And
No.
they specifically go to great effort to say that, oh, we're drinking all this root beer.
Oh, it's like why like.
I mean, let's be honest, nothing that's happening at Pleasure Island in this movie is different than any Disney park.
Yeah, not really. Like
They're just
basically
like
when.
kids playing and having fun and going on rides and eating lots of candy and soda pop. And like there's I'm thinking turning into donkeys for this is pretty harsh.
Pleasure Island is basically Tim Burton land in this.
Yeah.
where it's like there was some imagery but kind of reminded me of Dumbo also at certain points, which was
Yeah.
also like a weird movie where they commented on the whole big corporation
Yeah.
buys this little thing and it's evil, even though we are doing that weird. We talked
Yeah.
about that in another podcast. But there's one thing I enjoy about this. Because it's funny how in the original there are only boys going to Pleasure Island, but here it's also girls. This movie is
Mhm.
quite progressive. It's saying, hey, girls can be little shits too. I think that's great.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's all inclusive, even though they're not doing anything particularly bad. They're just kind of playing and eating
Yeah, I mean
sweets.
it's the whole thing. They do all the stuff they do in the original, except for drinking alcohol and smoking, because we have to be PC or whatever.
Yeah, like
It's
nothing that they do is particularly naughty. It's just kids
I mean the,
playing.
the
I don't know.
fireworks stuff is pretty dangerous.
I guess that's
Like
fair. But
one kid gets set on fire and has to jump into the river.
I was
Yeah.
frankly surprised that they didn't just cut this whole part out. I was, because I'm just thinking, how the heck do you make kids turning into donkeys in live action? And they were not successful. I was correct in that. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
looked horrible.
In terms of topping the
Lampwick, oh
original,
my gosh, it looked
like
awful.
because I mean, like, you can't top the creepy turning into a
Yeah,
donkey sequence from the original. You can't. But they don't even seem to try.
right.
But
It's just
although
we
I
did
like
get
the
a.
detail,
Go
yeah.
ahead, sorry.
But I like the detail of
No,
Pinocchio's donkey ears and tail also being made out of wood. I thought it was kind of an interesting
uh-huh.
idea. Um, and also I have to talk about the kid. The did you have you seen Near Dark from the 80s, the Catherine Bigelow vampire movie?
Uh-uh.
The kid who plays Lampwick in this, Lewin Lloyd, he looks exactly like the kid vampire in that movie, Homer, played by Joshua John Miller. I was watching and I was like, freaking identical kid.
That's funny.
Like, holy smokes.
Uh-huh.
Like,
That's interesting.
if they wanted to remake Near Dark, cast that kid.
Yeah, because I think in well, not only is the original is Lampwick absolutely terrifying, his transformation, but also the whole scene with, I think it's Alex is the kid's name, who still can talk, and then there's the whole group of them that aren't fully transformed that the coachman pushes over to one side. It's absolutely terrifying. I want to go back to my mom.
Yeah, yeah, but that's a really interesting thing about that movie, where it's kind of like, it ends well for Pinocchio, but it's like those kids, they're still donkeys. They're still going to the salt mines that
Yeah.
guys never captured or anything. So
Yeah.
it's basically, and it's really kind of surprising that in a remake like this they don't add something, because they add something about like, oh, Stromboli went to prison, even though
Yeah.
he isn't nearly as horrifying in this as he is in the remake,
Yeah. And that's why
noodling
you
everything
need
down.
them to be doing like really naughty stuff. Like I mean, not that you excuse the coachman by any means in the original, but you need the actions of the kids to be like really bad. Like kids just don't like smoke and drink and like that and the it's just so for them to even lower the stakes even more makes it even more like bizarre
I
than
mean,
in the original, which it already was kind of bizarre.
they're trying to update it in a certain way with that like contempt corner, where you basically have like a bunch of kids like picking up signs where it's kind of like, I hate you or you suck or whatever, and then
Oh yeah,
screaming
I
into
forgot about
like
that.
into kind of like kind of cameras
Bullying.
which project the imagery big. And that's like, okay, that's looks to me like that's kind of like a commentary um of today's times in a way. And I was like, oh, so this is where Nerd Roddick and his group of grifters hang out all the time. um Probably were also conceived there. But
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
contempt
what did
corner.
you Yeah, what did you think of the shadow creatures? I don't know what they're called, but that was kind of what they decided for this, was to have these kind of creatures that then they're the ones that turn the kids into the donkeys.
This,
And yeah, what do you think of that?
yeah, this is some. Thank you for asking that, because in the original we see those weird shadowy figures collecting the donkeys, and I interpreted those as being basically a stylized depictions of faceless bad people.
Mhm.
But these filmmakers completely misunderstood that, apparently, and made them
Yeah.
evil demonic smoke monsters. It's like
Yeah.
they are dumbing everything down.
Mhm. Yeah, I
There's no
agree.
reason. Like,
Yeah.
really.
Well, and I feel like it's even scarier for it to be this thing that I isn't even, like, present, that's making them change. That, like, that's even scarier than, like, another creature making them change.
Yeah. Because I think in the original it's kind of implied that the beer is turning them.
Yeah.
And also
It
that's very nice symbolism in a way. It's kind of, oh
Yeah,
yeah, when you drink too much alcohol, you're not quite yourself anymore,
yeah.
and you can turn into something much worse. So that's really nice. And as far as like the Pleasure Island sequence itself, it's not that bad. I think it's like the only scene with any kind of energy and creativity, like
Mhm.
them sliding down that mountain of candy. It's like, oh, good stuff, you know. It doesn't
Yeah, I
look
mean,
very nice.
there's some visuals, there's some ideas, but I just feel like they completely missed the whole point of the original film.
Yeah,
Like I said, the root beer was just stupid. That's just
yeah, it's
asinine.
it's it's dumped down and kiddified again with them
Yeah.
drinking root beer. Like, come on, is this Pleasure Island or Kid Nation?
Yeah, it's so bizarre to me that, like, any human being could watch the original Pleasure Island sequence and be like, "Ooh, that the thing that they need to cut out is the beer." I
And the
mean,
smoking.
and the smoking. That, "Oh, we can leave the child abuse." That's fine.
Yes. Yes,
What?
absolutely. And they're also beating you over the head with everything again to make sure that you really understand how bad this place is. They have to show how kids smash up clocks, and Pinocchio saying, "Oh, my father wouldn't like this." You
You're
know,
right.
it's yeah, it's
Well,
really like it's
Geppetto sells all of his clocks to go find Pinocchio. And so let's talk about Monstro. This much sequence. It was just, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was again it's one of the most tremendous displays of animation in the history of movies. This or the original monster sequence, and first of all, they decide to make him a creature, a monster, and not a whale, which
he's
I
a
don't
kaiju.
understand. Yeah, kaiju. I don't understand what that adds because he was terrifying as a whale. It was just like distracting to have all these tentacles and things like that.
Tentacles. He has like kind of like, it looks like he has wings at one point.
Hmm.
Um,
And
okay, I think I figured out the point of it, because nowadays everybody's very PC about whaling and all of it, and maybe they didn't want to demonize a whale, a regular whale. So they said, "Hey, let's make it a monster, so whales won't be offended when they go to see this movie on Disney Plus."
yeah, well, in the original, so Geppetto is devastated. He is so sad in The Whale and in Monstro, and he thinks he's never going to see Pinocchio again. He's devastated. In this, you've got like Pinocchio water skiing, and Geppetto like, "How do you have a great day?" Like, ugh, I was just
Yeah, also
dumbfounded,
miss
dumbfounded.
also missing the emotional point. And also, yeah, and also like, you did all of this in one day. I think that was like one of the last trailers they did.
Yeah,
And I was kind
painful.
of like, because yeah, the point is that he goes on a search, and then he ends up in the belly of a whale, and then he has to live there for a little while, which is also like kind of like this intriguing concept. There's even a really cool book, like a German pirate trilogy, where there's a monk living inside of a whale in like this magic room, and
Hmm.
tries
Yeah,
to
it almost
open.
feels sorry, it almost feels biblical at times, because of
Oh
course
sure,
Jonah and the whale.
that's
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, that's absolutely the symbolism of a book, I think. And but it's yeah, it's again dumbing everything down and making everything more cartoony as well. Ironically, more cartoony than the actual cartoon this is based on, which I
Mhm.
really don't understand.
Well, and who looks at that whole sequence in the original where Pinocchio is walking on the bottom of the ocean? That's an incredible sequence, and says, "No, we don't want to do that. We want to have him water skiing."
um, a very disillusioned director named Robert Zemeckis.
Clearly.
Yeah, because we can't have like this atmospheric scene where it's kind of like quiet and mysterious and also very beautiful. Now we have to
Mhm.
be loud and fast paced and obnoxious and also try to appeal to the cool kids who I guess like water skiing nowadays.
Well, and so then in the original, we have Pinocchio face down in the water, like dying, dead. That's horrible and upsetting. And here they decide to do the to have Geppetto be the one, which I don't know why they made that decision.
Yeah, I don't
Uh,
know why either. Like that bothered me so much. Like why does he have to bring him back with a magic tear or something? It's like
yeah,
it's again making everything dumber and it kind of like weirdly like, oh, we want to be more realistic in some places, but then we will add this stupid thing where
yeah,
it's
and it's
like
another place where you could have used the Blue Fairy and Cynthia Erivo. They must have only had her for like one day.
I don't get it. I really don't get it at
Yeah,
all.
that's
Like
the
why
only
even
thing that makes
bother?
sense.
And
Is they were
also
like, "We only have her for, like, 2 days, and so we're just gonna do the opening sequence, and we're gonna, like, make it work or not work." Because yeah, why does all of a sudden Pinocchio have the power to resurrect?
I
Uh,
guess that's also because the tear is kind of blue and shiny. So I guess it's her magic in a way. I don't know. Like
yeah.
she I mean, she brought him to life, so I guess there's some magic in him. I don't know. And also a little bit before that, I guess they established Pinocchio to be able to move his feet and legs very fast, and but that still doesn't excuse their decision of turning him into a boat motor at the end, like as if he was Obelix from the Asterix comics, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Well, and it was him and then the bird, Sophia, or I think it's
yeah,
named.
it's also like the world's strongest seagull. Like
Yes.
if I saw a bird like dragging something as big and as heavy probably as Pinocchio is by still being like a wooden boy. If I saw like a bird of that size picking up a doll or person that size, I would crap my freaking pants. I was kind of like, oh my god, they're coming for us. It's
Yeah,
the end times now. Cats and dogs are living together. Mass hysteria.
that's right. um, and so then this ending, we got to talk about the ending. What on earth? So that Geppetto tells Pinocchio that despite being a puppet, he has proven himself to be a true boy at heart. And then you see them walking off, but he never gets changed into a real boy.
Yes.
What?
It's
That doesn't make
it,
any sense.
it is really shitty that Pinocchio doesn't turn into a real boy, but from what we are getting teased with at the end, where it's kind of like he kind of turns and we see it from behind, it I'm actually glad that they don't term him. I'm sure he would have looked freaky as
Yeah,
hell.
that's fair.
Oh god, they wouldn't even have used a real kid. They would have used some like
You're right.
Peter Cushing
You're
CGI
right.
monstrosity, which also looks like the cartoon, you know. But it's
Yeah.
like really like that angered me so much, that like ending narration where like, oh yeah, and then like some say he turned into a real boy, but who knows if that's even true? Like, oh
Yeah, you're right. That is absolutely true. That they wouldn't have used a real boy. They would have used a CGI boy, and that would be even more atrocious.
CGI
Oof.
boy. Uh,
Uh, So yeah, I mean, I know some people they don't like it when we as content creators, I guess, go negative, right?
A lot of people
But
do.
I understand that it's hard to make a movie, and I understand that people worked hard. I'm not saying that they didn't, but Disney has incredible power. They are incredibly influential, and
Yes.
and I think we're not doing them any favors if we treat their products with kid gloves. They occasionally need to be called out, and not that anybody really cares about my, my little podcast, whatever. But I just feel like this movie was gross. It was so badly made in every way. I again not saying people didn't work hard. I'm saying that the finished product looks terrible. It completely ruins the message. It's terrible to look at. It's just bad in every way that a movie could be bad. It's cynical, it's cheap, and I honestly think it's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I just thought it was absolutely terrible. So I'm grateful for you for doing this with me. But do you have any final thoughts
Oh,
about
sure, yeah.
this?
I completely agree with you most points in terms of, all the people who like, the smaller people, who did the animation, who did the hard work. At least everybody's working, everybody's getting paid, but they have to follow what the people in charge are saying,
Yeah,
and the people in
absolutely.
charge are to blame. They are to blame here. Like Robert Zemeckis either has lost his mind by now, or he just absolutely doesn't care anymore. He seems to have turned into this work for hire hack who doesn't give a toss about the quality of the stuff he puts out. Like this wasn't even really a movie. Like I couldn't
Yeah,
for most of the time I couldn't even really see the screen. Instead, I just saw Robert Zemeckis' giant middle finger sticking out
yeah,
the whole time because that's what it was like where it's kind of like it's almost like he knew this was bad and this was like a hack job and he doesn't care and he just does this for money or whatever. And I mean, yeah,
hmm
certainly like sometimes people need to do stuff for money. Tim Burton has done it, certainly other directors have
hmm
done it, whatever. But at this point, like what was like the last good movie he did? I think it was The Walk. That was the last movie of his I
yeah,
liked. And that one also has problems, so that mostly comes down to
hmm
casting. But
yeah.
it's still a
It's watchable.
yeah, it's a nice movie. It's certainly also in 3D, like, and you can tell that he cared there. But here, and also like I have to talk about something else which concerns this remake and also the other ones, because this is something this movie does this thing a lot of these Disney remakes do, where they needlessly try to over explain everything for no reason.
Yeah.
Like why Pinocchio is named Pinocchio.
Right.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
he's made out of pine wood.
Right.
Pinocchio, Pinocchio. Or how Jiminy Cricket foreshadows the stone being flung up by the wagon wheel twice.
hmm
Like what is the
And Jiminy
point of
Cricket
stuff like
doesn't even
this?
get Cricket doesn't even get made conscience. He doesn't even get his
Yeah,
medal
no, he doesn't
at
get
the
his
end.
medal, but that's also kind of like this the symbolic shallow thing at the end for him where it's like okay whatever, but also like he doesn't he isn't a good conscience in this, so no wonder he doesn't get a medal.
yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying, I'm really not sure if this or the Lion King is worse in terms of remake, because
Yeah.
my
I
what would be
think
your
that at
opinion?
least The Lion King looked impressive.
Eh,
Um, it had a like this just looked, especially the end. I mean, it looked barely finished.
oh
I don't
sure,
know. It's a battle. They're both terrible, and I hate them. Um,
yes.
but I was struggling to find anything nice to say about this movie.
This at least has like some of those like what the heck moments.
Yeah, that's
You
fair.
you you
That's
could
fair.
you could show somebody and get a kick out of it for laughing at it, and I think my vote for what is worse would go to the Lion King, but it's a close call. They can
Yeah,
equally go to hell in terms of what they represent.
Agreed. So, yes. Well, let us know what you think of this Pinocchio. Do you think we're too hard on it? Did you defend it? Put in the comments. Let's hear it. But if you agree, let's hear it too. And if you're listening, Disney, I know you're not, but if you are, please stop. Please stop. Please.
Just stop. Just stop.
Yeah, I think there was a new wing added to the Zemeckis Zemeckis home for this movie. That's the only-
Oh, I'm sure he got like a really nice swimming pool, or
yeah, that's right.
I don't know, like a new Ferrari or whatever. Like somebody, like I don't know, like
Well,
probably Tom Hanks got a really nice vacation home.
yeah. Well, I really enjoyed enjoyed talking about this with you. So thank you so much. And where can people find you and your content on online?
Okay, let me see. You can find
Yes,
me.
plug.
You could find Fee. You couldn't mind Fee. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Lasse Vogt. My regular podcast is called Fans About Films. You can find it on SoundCloud and iTunes, where I talk with fans about films. Go figure. And I also interview composers there. For example, a few years back, I had the composers of the first season of Netflix's The Witcher as guests, and we had a lot of fun talking about stuff. There are German episodes and English episodes, so there's something for everybody. I co-host It's 90s Christmas podcast with Lyle Perez. We're currently on a break, but we will be back soon. It's also on iTunes and podomatic.com. I have an own show on sideshowsoundtheater.com, Track Swap, where I talk with people about film music, which is a lot of fun. I have a blog called scoregeek.wordpress.com, where I write about film music in German. I have a YouTube channel called The Deppert, and I think that's it, actually. I do a lot of stuff online, as you can see. Also, I have a lot of guest spots. And if you speak German by any chance, I am on the podcast network Telestammtisch, where we talk about new releases. Currently, we are doing Rings of Power recaps every week when we watch the new episode. So if you speak German by any chance, check that one out. We have a lot of opinions, and most of them are quite positive, which is very refreshing.
Yeah, my dad speaks German, so I'll have to tell.
Oh,
tell him.
nice! Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and tell him. I hope he finds some enjoyment.
He loves the Lord of the Rings, and he got the he'll watch them with the German dub.
Oh, nice.
And and he also I got him Robin Hood that has a German dub DVD a while back, and it actually has Peter Ustinov doing the German.
Yes,
which is kind of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the dub. Yeah.
But yeah,
anyway,
I think that's all my stuff. I have to plug, and let me tell you, thank you so much for having me on your show. I do love it very much, and I had a blast hating on this movie.
Thank you. Yes, it was very therapeutic for me. So thank you.
I'm very, very glad I could help you.
Yeah. And I love talking to composers. I've been able to do a lot. I just recently had one, Michael Yezierski, who has done a lot of more TV work, but I recently interviewed him for Rotoscopers. And then also on my channel, you can find the interview. It's fun to talk to composers and hear their
really
process.
Awesome.
It's really fun. So I'm with you there. Well, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also check out the Hallmarkies podcast. Lots of fun stuff going on over there. And let us know what you think. And check out the Patreon and the merch store. We have #AnimationJunkie shirts over there at the merch store. So thanks again very much. And we'll talk to you all later. Bye, everyone.